Hi, Coach Craig here with Precision Athletics, and I want to talk to you today about some of the biggest mistakes people make when they're doing cardiovascular training. So, as you can see behind me, we've got the different zones laid out and what they are, but let me go through what the zones mean and some of the mistakes that people make in associated with designing their cardio program or divvying up their cardio training zones for the week. So, the entirety of those zones together, all the resting heart rate at the bottom and max heart rate at the top, that's called your cardiovascular window. So there's two ways to improve your cardiovascular window. One of those is to lower your resting heart rate. The other is to raise your max heart rate. We'll go through what zones do what, but keep that in mind when we're talking about cardiovascular training. So zone one is your basic activity. That's just walking around. You're not really elevating your heart rate. Some people refer to this as non-exercise activity. So to improve your cardiovascular window, we need to get into zone two. So that's lower your resting heart rate. Zone two is your comfortable cardio, right? You're jogging, you can answer questions, you can talk a little bit, you're not completely out of breath. And by heart rate, that's 50 to 60% of your maximum heart rate. What's happening here is your body is be using fat as the primary fuel source. And the way you improve with zone two training is it lays down more capillaries. So your body actually gets better at delivering the blood and oxygen to your muscles. So one of the biggest mistakes people make is they think that only the hard cardio gets them fitter. So they only do zone 3 and zone 4 or zone 5, which we'll get to what the benefits of those. But if you ignore zone 2 cardio, you're not going to be getting that decrease in resting heart rate. You're not going to be burning fat, and you're not going to be getting the better capillary density, which actually, think of it this way, it makes you better at doing cardio. So an example for an athlete would be, say, if you're a recreational hockey player and you're out, you're pushing yourself for your shift. So that would be, you're using your probably in zone 3, zone 4, zone 5 even. Then you sit down on the bench and you're like, why can't I catch my breath? The obvious thought there, people are thinking, I need to go get my heart rate up high all the time so I get better at catching my breath. They're actually wrong. The zone 2 cardio is what helps you recover faster between bouts of hard exercise. So one of the biggest mistakes people make is not including zone 2 in their cardio if they don't see zone 2 as part of their sport. The other one is if people are trying to lose fat, they only do zone 3, 4, and 5 because it burns more calories. However, as a fuel source, zone 3, 4, and 5 don't use that much fat. So zone 2 cardio reduces your resting heart rate. It's going to help you recover between shifts, and it's going to burn the most fat. The other bonus is it's the easiest one to do. It doesn't take a ton of motivation to get your heart rate up to that level. So, I'm go for a jog, or I'm a bit of a nerd. I have a weighted vest and I walk my dog with a weighted vest, and that gets me into zone 2 cardio. I don't have to psych myself up to push my heart rate to get to a certain level and maintain that level for a certain amount of time, as you do in zone 3 and 4 training. The other thing with zone 2 training is it's the easiest to recover from. So again, a mistake people make is doing mostly zone 3 and 4 training, which can lead to producing cortisol, which is anti-fat loss. And the zone 3 and 4 is hard to recover from. So let's talk about the zone 3 and 4 training. So zone 3 and 4 training, who wants to do that? That is if you came to me and said, hey, I want to beat my time in the sun run. The sun run was just a couple weeks ago. You're like, I'd really like to get under 50 minutes for the sun run. You'll be training in zone 3 and zone 4. That's when people go to the track. They've got to run a certain number of laps at a certain speed, or they go out, they set a timer. They're like, I've got to run 4 minutes at a 5-minute kilometer. And then they're going to have a recovery period and then do that pace again. So in that type of work, your body's building up its capacity to tolerate lactic acid. So you're getting better at that. When you're running and your legs are burning, your body learns to get rid of that lactic acid and use it as a fuel. So the adaptation in zone 3 and 4 is different from what's happening in zone 2, right? So the mistake people make is doing all zone 3 and 4 training, especially on an empty stomach. People think, I'm going to get up in the morning, I'm going to be fasted, and I'm going to go to a spin class. That's going to cause a massive spike in your cortisol. The zone 3 and 4 training, as you do it, actually doesn't burn any fat, And because it's high intensity, and if you run out of fuel, your stored glycogen, your body's actually going to start breaking down muscle. So biggest mistake with zone 3 and 4 training I see is people do it too frequently. They don't do any zone 2, so they're not actually getting that reduction of their resting heart rate, and they're doing zone 3 and 4 too frequently, which is increasing their cortisol. Now, what about zone 5? So zone 5 is a very short burst of very high intensity. The difference between zone 3 and 4 is you cannot maintain zone 5 for very long. So we're looking at a 10 to 20 second all out effort, and you need a long time to recover. You need minutes to recover between bouts. But what that does is that increases your body's ability to get up to those maximum heart rates. The byproduct is when you actually do true zone 5 work is that your body releases growth hormone and testosterone to help you recover from it. So the problem with constantly doing zone 3 and zone 4 is you don't get that growth hormone to help you recover from it. You're producing lots of lactic acid and possibly producing cortisol spikes. So as a trainer, what do I recommend? If your goal is fat loss, you do mostly zone 2 and some zone 5. If you have an athletic performance goal, you still do your zone 2 and you do 1 to 2 sessions in zone 3 or 4 max, and you still probably throw in one bout of zone 5. Question I often get, can I do them together? 100%. So if you're doing your zone 2 cardio, you get towards the end of the time you have allotted for the day, say I've got an hour, I go for a run, I could stop at the end and do a few sprints. So that wraps up my talk on cardio. To recap, the biggest mistakes is not doing zone 2 cardio, especially if your goal is fat loss, too much zone 3 and 4 work, especially if you don't have a specific athletic goal, and skipping zone 5. So incorporate those in your training, and if you have any questions, please reach out to us.